Welcome. We're going to have a great day today. Like I said, are you ready to buy some houses and make some money? So let's get started. Everybody, welcome Mr. Bill Gatten.
Hey.
One and only.
Listen to this. Thank you, guys. I'm going to ask you several things that you need to do during the workshop to make some money. One of them is make some phone calls. We talked about that last night. If you weren't here last night, if you open your workbook to the first couple pages, you'll find that the call script is in there. You'll find that at the end of the call script section, there's a grid. There's like a form that you fill out where if somebody says, yes, I think that's a good idea, or yes, I think I'd like to do that, or well, yeah, I'll do that, and give me a call back, so forth, as long as it's positive. We've got too many people to make cold calls with you, but if you'll make the calls, we pretty much, like Gail said, guarantee you that if you do what we ask you to, you're going to be successful. Now, a lot of people here will get houses. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We'll probably have 50 houses that we could pick up, but everybody won't. And the reason for that is there's going to be people here who don't make any calls. They're not going to get any houses. There are going to be people here who make a few calls and don't get any houses. There's going to be some people here who make a lot of calls and get houses. And it's conceivable, I don't think it's ever happened, it's conceivable that you could make all 52 calls and not get a house. That's why somebody last night won $100, because I think we had 4 people who ended up on the 52 card challenge with a 0, and we're willing to reward them because it's so unusual that you could go 52 opportunities with 52 matching needs and not hit a synchronicity or 2 or 4 or 10 along the way. Somebody got 11 last night, right? Well, that's pretty amazing. 11 hits out of 52. And those of you, raise your hand if you don't know what the 52 card challenge is. Okay, the 52 card challenge is we go through 52 cards and we're trying to hit this synchronicity. So the way we demonstrate how frequently that will happen to you is we take the cards and we count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and let's say 10. And you see a 10 showing when you're counting number 10. That's a synchronicity. So what we say at that point, okay, I just bought a house. Slide that over to the side and then keep going. Jack, queen, king, ace. And when you get to king, you start over again. Ace, 2, 3, 4. And see how many synchronicities you hit when you're going through this deck. Now last night, out of 300 and some people, we had 4 people, which is very unusual, that went through 52 cards and didn't get a single hit. And one of them won $100. And then we had another person who got 11 hits, which is also very unique. I think that might match our record. I think our record is 11, and that might have matched the record. And she won $100. So the whole idea is when you're making these calls, just remember 52 of them. And as you're making the calls, you're going to get people who are not interested in talking to you at all because they're not what you're looking for. All you're looking for is that juxtaposition where your need happens to match theirs. And when it does, bam, you got one. And then we'll make the calls. Now, the other thing I want to caution you about is this. You can get 3 or 4 hits for 5 or 6, and some people will get 10 or 20 sometimes because one person will have 15 properties and so on. It doesn't mean that you're going to end up with the property. As a matter of fact, you're probably not going to end up with most of them. And the reason for that is several. First of all, you take a look at the property or get a picture of it or find out more about it. It's not what you want because it doesn't fit your parameters or it's too ugly, too beat up, whatever. Another reason that you might not get it is the guy might have already gotten a buyer by the time you get to call him back the second time. Another reason is maybe the guy just changes his mind in the process. So you're not going to get most of those properties that we end up with. But you will get them if you do what I ask you to. And remember, what I'm asking you to do to have made 52 telephone calls. And the reason we're doing that, I don't want those houses. I want to help you get them. I want to close the deals for you. I'm going to help you prepare the proposal and the offer. It's all done with a free disc that we're going to give you, and it's done on your computer or ours. And we'll prepare the disc, email the disc. You don't have to do much. And then you just sit and wait and see if you got the house. And if you do, then you decide whether you're going to take it or not. And when you finally get the house, we're going to approach this with a non-exclusive option so that you don't have to pay anybody any money or make any commitment at all until you have somebody else with all the cash that you need to close the deal. That might be me. If it's a deal where you say, well, this guy's got a nice house in Tupelo, Mississippi, but we need $6,000 to bring his payments current, and I got to get it because it's got $40,000 worth of equity and whatever it might be, I'll give you $6,000 real quick. But the thing is, most of the time you're not going to need my money because the resident beneficiary that you're going to put in the house, it's a nice house, Tupelo, Mississippi. You run an ad in the newspaper, get a ground partner in Tupelo, Mississippi to show it for you, so on. But we got ground partners in virtually every city, everywhere across the United States. They will take care of all of it. All your stress is gone. You don't have to take any chances till you got all the money you need. And even then, there's a perfect exit strategy. You're going to do it with a non-exclusive option. You don't have to come up with any money. You don't have to qualify for any loans. You don't have to take any undue risk. It's not your credit that it's at stake, if anybody's is. And if something goes wrong, there's a perfect exit strategy that allows you to get out of the transaction and give the house back. All you just need to make sure you act quickly because you want to give it back with the payments current. But the people, when they sign an agreement saying that if everything goes to heck in a handbag, that their recourse is limited to foreclosure on your interest in the property. So what we've done is taken the risk out, we've taken the drama out, we've taken all the heart palpitations out and so forth. So the whole point of this is let's make those calls. That's why you're here. I want to get you some houses. I don't want any part of the house. It's all yours. We'll help you get the buyer. That's all yours. We don't want to share in it with you. We don't want any partnerships or anything unless you need our money. If you need our money, then we'll partner with you. But we'll show you how you don't need our money because the resident beneficiary is going to have plenty, okay? So just know that, and know that we're not screwing around. We're here to make some money, and the whole purpose of all of this is to make money. Here we go. Let's talk about this. What we're doing in our business is this. We've got another universe of real estate investing. What we have is a system to teach you that will allow you to do things that you've never been able to do before. In other words, we do not want you to stop doing what you're doing. In other words, we don't want you to, if you love lease options, keep doing it. Just call it something else and use different documents and save your neck. If you're doing wraparound mortgages, all-inclusive trustees, don't stop. We've got a better way to do it. If you're doing equity shares, don't stop. We just happen to have a better way to do it. We live in a completely separate universe from where you've been. So remember, two different universes. In the universe that you're in, here's how things work. The universe that you guys are coming from, you've got a transfer by deed. Now in our universe, we have a transfer by trust. It's a whole different thing. In other words, if I want to sell you a box of raisins, I can give you a scoop of raisins and have you take them home. Or I can sell you a box full of raisins and have you take the box home. Now either way, you're getting the raisins, okay? But in one case, you're saying, well, how much did you pay for the raisins, each raisin? Well, I don't know. They were all in a box and I just paid for the box. And I didn't buy any raisins. I just bought a box that had raisins in it. Same thing here. If I want to transfer a property, I will never transfer a property by a deed, okay? And I will never take a property by receiving a deed. And the reason for that is I don't want to be on the deed. How many of you here have your names on the deed to real estate? Okay, well, don't do that. You don't have to do that. Let me tell you what happens when you put your name on the deed to real estate. It's exactly the same thing as pinning a bullseye, a big old bullseye on your back and walking down the street where all attorneys' offices are on each side and they're looking at you and your bullseye says, sue me. Because they will. I mean, why not sue somebody who owns real estate? Especially if it's got some equity in it. What matters whether they're right or wrong? Let's sue them anyway and get them to settle out of court. And that's the thing. And our attorney who is here today, is our attorney here today? Chicken. That's what I have against attorneys. And when I say I have a gazoo against attorneys, remember my son is an attorney and our daughter-in-law is an attorney. And I don't like them. No, yes, I do. Just kidding. Yes, I do. But that's what attorneys do, and that's why you're so vulnerable when you own real estate. if you're an attorney and you want to make some money, go sue somebody, right or wrong, and say, well, you know, you don't have to go through this if you don't want to. Really? Yeah, no, I'll stop anytime you give me $5,000. Just settle out of court. Oh no, I'm in it. I'm serious about this, and you're not going to take advantage of me. Okay, go find an attorney, pay him $10,000 then, in order to beat me in court. Are you sure you don't want to pay me $5,000 and let me beat myself? Okay. That's what drives me nuts about the law, the United States legal practice. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. However, you don't have to have your name on the deed to the property. Put your property in a land trust, in a California title holding trust. Put all of your property that you own in a land trust. Now, when you put that property in a land trust, what it does is hides it from view. It doesn't protect anything necessarily, but it hides it from view. So when your property is in the land trust, the trustee owns the property. You don't own it anymore. You've given it to the trustee of this land trust. So now if somebody's going to sue you, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to run a title search and find under your name, and they're going to find out what you own. And they come up and the attorney says, well, looks like I'm going to have to collect a retainer fee from you because the guy doesn't have anything worth suing him for. I can't find any real estate anywhere. So the person says, well, did you check on that property over there on 123 Fig Street? I think he owns that. So the attorney goes to run another title search on 123 Fig Street. And he says, no, doesn't own it. Looks like some outfit up near Sacramento somewhere, Equity Holding Corporation, owns that property. So his name still doesn't show up. The guy said, well, I'm positive that he does. So the attorney says, well, and most attorneys would never, ever go this far, but this attorney's intrepid. He says, all right, I'll tell you what I'll do. If you really think he might own that property in some way, let me call the trustee and find out. So he calls the trustee, because it's listed right there on the deed who the owner of the property is, Mid-Pines, California. He calls the trustee. He gets Tom standing on the phone. Is Tom here? Tom's outside? He gets Tom standing on the phone, and he says, Tom, get off the phone. Don't stand on your phone. No, that's a joke if Tom was here. But he gets Tom standing on the phone, and he says, yes, is this Equity Holding Corporation? Yes, it is. And he says, well, I understand that you folks own a property at 123 Fig Street. And Tom says, really? He says, yeah, what I'd like to do is find out who the beneficiary of that trust is. Tom says, well, first of all, it's none of your business. If we did own the property at 123 Fig Street, it's our business, none of yours. We're under no obligation to let anybody know anything about any one of our trusts or any beneficiary in any one of our trusts. So shut up. So the attorney says, I think that I'm going to sue somebody. So he turns around and he starts a lawsuit. He's going to sue this person because he's got a suspicion that this person is a beneficiary in the trust. So the first thing he's going to do is bring that trustee in for a deposition. Well, he's going to have to go to Mid-Pines, California to do it because in a deposition, the person being deposed doesn't have to go more than, I think it's 50-mile radius from their point of origin or point of operation or whatever. So he's going to have to go up there to do the deposition. That's going to be pretty expensive, and he's actually, buying a pig in a poke there. He doesn't know whether or not he's right or wrong yet. But he's going to, let's say he goes far enough now to spend the money for food and transportation and hotel and everything else and setting up a court reporter for the deposition and getting a room to do the deposition. And now Tom Stanton comes in and he says, okay, I understand you're the trustee and he has to come in if he gets a court order or a notice for deposition. So he comes in and says, I understand you're the trustee for the Fig Street Trust. Yes, I am. Well, I understand that the owner of that property is my client, Bob Smith. Is that true? No. Oh, really? Well, who's the owner of the property? My company owns that property. Okay, then, let's see. I guess then my client owns that trust. No, that's not true. Guess then I must be asking the wrong questions. Does my client have any involvement in that trust at all? Now the trustee's got to be honest and says, yes. Great, that's all I need to know. So I take it then my client is the beneficiary of that trust. Yes, he is. Oh, okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you very much. Now he goes back to Los Angeles, fills out his lawsuit. Now he sues or not, his client's not the beneficiary. He is the suee. I misspoke. So he's going to sue this guy now, and he says, I got him because I'm going to take his beneficial interest away. If he's got a beneficial interest in the trust, it's just a piece of personal property, right? So I'll go ahead and sue for his personal property interest in that trust, and then as soon as I get it, then I can direct the trustee to revoke the trust and give me the property. So let's go sue. Now he sues, and all of a sudden now he's in trouble because he forgot to ask if there were any other beneficiaries in the trust. So now all of a sudden he finds out that Bob Smith is not the only beneficiary. There's a guy named Jacob Golub in the trust. And the two beneficiaries both own the same beneficial interest in the same trust. And that means that two people are owning the same personal property. Unlike real estate, personal property can't be partitioned by a judgment creditor. You can't force the sale of half of it like you can with real estate. If you and I are on the same pink slip on the same car and I get sued and you and I both own that car, they can't make me sell the car because they can't partition it off like you can real estate. So all of a sudden he's stopped. He can't do anything with his lawsuit because his personal property can't be partitioned. He can't demand a charging order against the property. He can't get a sheriff's sale order. Can't do anything with it. So now he's got to go back and sue Bob personally in personam for whatever other assets he might have. So he stopped. The property is protected because of the personal property, the dual owner of the personal property interest in a trust. That means your house now, if you've got a co-beneficiary who's not related to you, your house is protected. So now he's going to go back and say, okay, let's see. What I'm going to do is sue Bob, and I'm going to end up owning the trust. Well, he can't do that. And whatever else he's got that has to do with the property, the refrigerator in the hotel or whatever it is that's in the property, he's going to try to get that. He can't get that either because Bob holds everything in his beneficial interest in a limited liability company. So the limited liability company protects him from the suit against the property. In rem, they call it. The in rem is against the property, in personam against the person. So the attorney is stopped now. He can't sue in rem, he can't sue in persona, and as a result, he's screwed. He's out of luck, and he should have charged a big retainer fee from his client and said, whether we win or lose, I still make a whole bunch of money, and that's exactly what they do. But if he's dumb enough to not take the big retainer fee and proceed with a property that's in a co-beneficiary land trust, he's not going to make any money. So just understand the benefits of transferring by trust. Your property is protected. It doesn't matter whether you have 100 houses or apartment buildings or anything at the time. Now, here's the deal. In our world, in the world that you guys are coming from, and I hope you get out of that transfer by deed world because it's really dangerous. There's no kidding. You could do a contract for deed. You could do equity share. You could do wraparound loans, all-inclusive trust deeds, all-inclusive mortgages. You can do lease options. You can do any kind of a subject-to arrangement and so forth. And that's it. You can do get a property out of foreclosure if you wanted to. You could get a property on a short sale if you wanted to, if you got the money to be able to pay the down payment on a short sale and qualify for the loan. And you could get it, buy a foreclosed on property if you got the wherewithal to make the down payment and qualify for a loan or pay cash. But that's it. You're limited there. In our world, over on the other side where we are, we could do the same wraparound, just do it in a different way, the same contract for deed or land sale contract, same equity share, the same lease options, short sale, foreclosure. We could do quick time sharing. We can go in and have a big, giant, beautiful home on the lake or at the ocean worth $3 million and have 20 people involved as 20 beneficiaries in the trust that owns the property, and each one of them would have the benefits of a timeshare without having to go through any time-sharing noodling around with planning commission regulations and all that kind of stuff, and applications and forms. We could do quick condominiumization. In other words, you got a 4-unit apartment building, put it in a land trust and make each one of the tenants a beneficiary in the land trust. And by doing it that way, because it's 4 units and less, you're not violating any due on sale clause. And secondly, because you got 4 people dividing the payment 4-way, each one of them can take 100% of 1/4 of the monthly payment as a tax write-off for property tax and interest. Each one of them can have 1/4 of the future profit, when the property sells, each one of them can have 1/4 of the equity buildup from principal reduction in the mortgage loan, which means that they're getting 100% of the tax write-off for their 1/4. So they have a unit like a condo. They're getting 100% tax write-off for everything they pay for interest and property tax. They're getting 100% of their share of the equity buildup from principal reduction. They're getting 100% of their share of the appreciation. 100% of everything. So that's quick condominiumization. You can do it with a 20-unit building. The only difference there is when you put it in the trust, you got to notify the bank. Yes, sir.
Just as how the attorney went after one beneficiary, is it possible if there's two beneficiaries, he could do the same thing, go after both beneficiaries?
Sure, if they were both in cahoots, if they were acting together to deceive somebody, it could. But the thing is, when we say unrelated beneficiaries, we're not necessarily talking only about familially unrelated. We're talking about being unrelated in business intent.
So there's no way he could find
no.
out who's the second
If you and I
beneficiary?
are two beneficiaries in the trust, or you're the resident beneficiary and I'm an investor beneficiary, and you and I are both trying to defraud somebody or deceive somebody, or you and I both rob the bank, well, then you and I both are going to be in trouble and lose the house. But if we're not related to each other and I'm not culpable in your crime and you're not culpable in mine, then we're okay. Okay?
When you have handed over to your tenants the tax benefits, do you then have to send them some documentation like a 1098 or a K-1 or anything
No,
like
the
that?
1099 will come from the bank and it'll go to the trustee. The trustee will make copies of it and send copies of anything that comes to it to all beneficiaries. So it's up to the beneficiaries to treat their income tax any way they want to. It's not up to you. You can't sell tax write-off. You can't tell somebody that they should take it. You just set it up so that they can, if their accountant has any brains or calls us. Or
Oh,
whatever.
I see. And your excellent trustee handles all those details.
Yeah, the trustee will collect anything that's mailed to, because remember, the trustee is now the owner of the property.
So that's how he earns his money.
Well, I don't know if he earns his money, but he sure charges. Yes, it is, and they don't charge much. They charge 0.5% of a property's value per year at maximum at $140 a month and a minimum of $39 a month.
Bill, do you have any experience of trying to make your tenant in a house, a Section 8 tenant, for instance, making them a beneficiary of the property?
That's all we do.
No,
That's the
but
whole
it's a
purpose of
Section
everything.
8 tenant. They're not supposed to have
matter.
any money.
Doesn't matter whether it's Section 8 or not.
Oh, really?
If your uncle is in a Section 8 person and you buy an insurance policy, can you name your uncle to be the beneficiary of your insurance policy?
Sure.
Sure. What if you have any kind of a trust and you need somebody to be a remainder agent in your trust? Can you name your uncle? Sure you can.
Sure.
It doesn't matter whether it's Section 8 or not. Now, that's really a nice thing, too, to take somebody who is a Section 8 tenant and make them a beneficiary of the trust.
Great, thanks.
You bet. Because remember, the beneficiaries are never the owners of the property. They just happen to, because of the IRS, the Revenue Code 163H4D, the IRS says that if you happen to be a beneficiary in one of these crazy things called a land trust, then you're going to be treated for all tax purposes as the owner of the real estate. Okay, so understand this, that in your world that I want to get you out of in a desperate way, here's the problems that you've got. Everything that you do here, other than maybe short sale or the foreclosure, is going to violate the lender's due on sale clause. In other words, how many of you think that violating a lender's due on sale clause is just no big deal? You think it's no big deal. Eves?
Yes,
Man, are you wrong. It's not a big deal until they call one of your notes due and payable.
right, but usually they don't bother for a couple of months until they
Usually they don't bother for a couple months. Well, what if you got a 5-year tenant in your property or a 3-year lease option on the property, and then they bother? Does that bother you?
yeah, I'll
Okay. Let me tell you something about due on sale clauses. People who don't know how to do what we do, the gurus out there that are selling lease option courses and land contract courses and foreclosure courses and this and that and so forth, they don't know how to get around the due on sale clause. They don't know how to work with it so that it's honest and legal and ethical. So what they have to do is the same thing I did when I was in the equity share business. When I first met Manny Inarez, I don't think we had the trust going when I met you, did we? Just the equity share program. So I would stand up and minimize the effect of the due on sale clause. I would say things like, lenders hardly ever call the note due and payable because of a due on sale violation. Well, it's true. But what is hardly ever? Does that mean 1 out of 10, 1 out of 100, 2 out of 100, or whatever? Well, the fact is, the second and third property that I acquired on an equity share basis, both of those loans got called because the lender found out that the owner had transferred his title to me. Bam, called instantly. So when somebody tells me that, it makes me shudder because it's not true. Lenders do call. You talk to Countrywide Funding sometime, Countrywide Bank and Countrywide Funding. We got several due on sale calls with Countrywide. Our people in our program, in our PacTrust, got their notes called. And the people come to me, hey, you said that they couldn't do this. I didn't say they couldn't do it. Of course they can do it, they just can't prevail. They won't get what they want. So there's a letter that goes back that says, shut up, and the property has not been sold, there has been no purchase, there has been no sale. Your borrower placed the property into a bona fide inter vivos trust. The person living in the property who you think is the owner of the property is not, he's merely leasing the property from the trust. Period. There has been no sale, there has been no purchase. Now with Countrywide, they got this staff of attorneys. I don't know where they get them. They scrape them off of something. They come back. They come back to me with a letter. We understand your position, sir. However, we feel that there has been a unapproved transfer of ownership interest. And I write back and I say, well, if you just take a look at the law, it's a federal law. It's called the Garn-St. Germain Act, and it's the Federal Depository Institutions Act of 1982. And if you'll look at Section 8 of that, and it's called, it's under U.S. Code 1701J3, Section 8. If you take a look at that, it says that any borrower in any state, federal, or private loan for mortgage purposes can put his property into an inter vivos trust anytime he wants to, as long as the trust is revocable and inter vivos, and as long as the trust document itself does not relate to any transfer of occupancy of the property. And then you will also notice in the same section that any borrower anytime can lease their property out for up to 3 years, as long as there is no option to purchase involved. And show me in the law where it uses the word unapproved. It doesn't. It says unpermitted. What is the word? No, they use the word unauthorized, I think, and it says whatever it is. They use the wrong word because they're trying to get around the Garn-St. Germain Act. So they backed off, and that was 2 deals. Tom sent me the paperwork, and we went back and forth, and finally, people are still in the house, not a problem. Countrywide's backed off, and part of the reason they backed off is because they realized probably when they looked us up that they are holding about probably $80 million worth of loans where the properties have been placed into the equity holding trust. And they're getting thousands of dollars every month from Tom's company on payments. Now, if they were to go ahead and foreclose on one, I don't know if they're thinking like this or not, they got $80 million worth of foreclosures on their hand, and they probably don't want to do that anyway. Same with Washington Mutual. Washington Mutual only took 1 letter to shut them up. Nationwide Funding only took 1 letter. You know, the situation qualifies completely under USC 1701J3, so on. Everybody backs off, so we're not worried about due on sale violations. Now, the other problem is eviction is not allowed. What if you got a lease option on a property and the guy and the optionee doesn't pay you? Can you evict him?
No.
Why not?
Because he has a owner.
Sure, he paid you an option fee, he's paying you rent credits, you gave him some sort of a bargain buyout arrangement, and all of that constitutes equity in the property. And if you have equity in a property where you're living, that means you're an owner. And if you're an owner, you cannot be evicted. You have to be foreclosed upon. So these mooches that come in, these professional tenants, what they do is they'll set you up, not make a payment, knowing that you don't know much about the law, and then they just laugh at you when they get the eviction notice, throw it in the trash, and forget about it. Then you send another one. This time you have it posted on their door. They just laugh at you, throw it in the trash, and wait for you to go to an attorney and find out that the eviction never would have worked in the first place. Now you got to go through a foreclosure action. So now you go to court, get an attorney, go to court, you get your foreclosure action. That takes a couple months and thousands of dollars to get into the foreclosure, and finally you get your foreclosure. And now their equitable interest is foreclosed upon. And you're real lucky if you don't have to pay them back any money that they claim was their equity in the property after you get your foreclosure. But that doesn't make them move out of the house. They can still stay in the house, because now you got to go through an ejectment action to regain possession of the property and get your house back. And then that doesn't solve the problem either, because now you get your house back, they get out of there, and you finally, after all of this, you spent $10,000, $20,000 and hours of pain and suffering and bloodletting and so on, and now you're ready to sell the house, but you can't sell it because the escrow won't close because of the lis pendences that are still hanging on the house from the legal action that took place all this time. So now you got to go hire another attorney and go through a quiet title action. That's about another $3,000 or $4,000 for a quiet title action. So let me ask you this. You still want to do lease options? No, you can do it, but do it another way. Here's the way you do a lease option. Put the property in a land trust. Bring in a resident who wants to lease the property, and make that resident a beneficiary of your trust, and just lease it to him on a straight lease with no option. In the beneficiary agreement, have an arrangement where if he wants to buy the property, he will pay full fair market value like anyone else, minus any monies that are due to him from the trust. So he comes in, instead of an option fee, he puts in a $15,000 contingency fund in the trust. Now that contingency fund, the resident beneficiary contribution, is fully refundable at the end of the lease. Now you can make that contingency fund any amount you want it to be, whether he paid it to you or not. You can say his contingency fund is $20,000, but he only gave you $5,000. That's okay, because at the end of the agreement, now he gets to buy the house for full fair market value, but at the same time that he's buying it, the trust is going to be paying him back that contingency fund that he posted up front, plus any other share of profit that you might have agreed to with in the beginning. So you can end up with what is tantamount to a lease option without violating any rules, regulations, violating the due on sale clause. Now another thing about a lease option, try to do a lease option in Texas. Anybody here from Texas? What happens if you do a lease option in Texas? It's against the law. You go to jail. I don't know anyone who's gone to jail yet, but somebody will. It's against the law. If you can't transfer a property within 6 months, then you are in violation of House Bill 1841, and they just passed another one, making it even stronger, and Senate Bill 691, I think, and so on. It's against the law, and it's also against the law in Texas to do a contract for deed, a land sale contract. Now, a land sale contract is where somebody comes in, they don't own the property until they pay for it. And the reason for that is those are executory contracts. And when they said that executory contracts in Texas are illegal, that wiped out the ability to do a contract for deed or a lease option. You go to jail for doing that. And don't think it's not going to happen here, because after Texas, then came Maryland, and then after Maryland was Illinois, and then after Illinois was Ohio, and it's just spreading because these attorney generals in these various states are finding a way to get their name in the television and in the newspaper by coming after us, the creative real estate investor, because they don't like us. Because we're screwing things up. We're going out and getting these properties, and the banks are not able to finagle new loans at higher rates and so forth, and we're figuring out ways that we can get out of the adjustable rate mortgage dilemma, and the bank doesn't get to come in and write a brand new loan, which is their intention in the first place. They knew that these adjustables were going to push you to the brink, and you'd have to either give them the house at the end or go apply for a new loan, pay off the old loan through the nose. And it's not working with us, so they're screaming and yelling because we have a better way of doing things. The other thing is, never forget. I wish I could read this without looking at the screen. Sorry about that, guys. Maybe, oh yeah, I can now. Oh. Liens and levies. Any owner in a property that's on the deed, anytime a lien or a levy attaches to them, it's going to attach to the property. So if anyone gets a lien, a lawsuit, a judgment, a marital dispute, a divorce, a death, dying, probate, and so forth, you're the other person who is just carrying the paper for them. Bam, all of a sudden they're up the creek without a paddle, and so are you, because you can't sell the house. Because there's a lien on it. There's a $400,000 lien on this little $300,000 house. You got to pay off their IRS bill or their debt before you can sell the house, even though they're already in prison. So there's reasons not to do these things. Litigation exposure, public view. Anybody wants to sue you, all I got to do is look it up in the record if you're on the deed. So get your name off the deed. You don't need to be. You don't lose anything. And by putting the property in a trust, not only do you not lose anything, but you gain anonymity and secrecy and privacy and protection against all this stuff. Increasing government scrutiny. Pete has a list, and he might be talking about it tonight, a list, I think it's 70 new laws that are on the books in various states, California included. 70 new laws designed to eliminate the practice of this so-called creative real estate financing. And they're setting it up in Illinois. They tried to pass a law where anybody teaching a class like this one would have to be licensed to teach the class. They'd have to post a $2 million bond. They'd have to be a licensed professional attorney or something else, which is ridiculous. And fortunately, the law didn't pass because it's too ridiculous. But that's what they're trying to do. It wouldn't stop me. I'd do it. Well, yes, it would. Government scrutiny, and then partition and charging orders. We already talked about that. Now look at the downsides over in my universe. My universe does exactly all the same stuff. I can achieve all the same objectives, the same end results, the same purpose, everything, plus with mine, and every time I get asset protection too on top of that. But look at it. Here's the downsides over on our side. The downsides on our side are we don't violate the due on sale clause. Foreclosure is avoided if one of our resident beneficiaries doesn't make his payment, he gets evicted because he's just a tenant. He doesn't own the house, he just gets an eviction notice and he has to leave. The contract provides that if he is evicted, then that's a constructive notice to sell his interest to the non-defaulting parties at fair market value that has to be proven by him. What I usually do is offer them the loan amount in $1 as a buyout. And if they don't like it, they have the right to go get the property appraised, prove that I owe them more money. And if they prove that I owe them more money, I have to pay them in the form of an unsecured promissory note that doesn't have to be covered until the termination of the trust. And then only if there's enough money to cover it. Asset protection, no subterfuge needed. We don't have to lie to Countrywide Funding or any other bank. We don't let them know up front what's going on because we don't want to talk to some, $10 an hour clerk and tell them, well, yeah, we're doing something that doesn't violate the due on sale clause. They don't know what they're talking about, but we don't have to. When we're talking to loss mitigation or we're talking to anybody else, a collection department, and they say, well, what's the deal? We say, yeah, the property's placed in a land trust. The people who are leasing the property are also beneficiaries of the trust. Oh, I see. That's it. Bam. So we don't have to lie to anybody. We don't have to cheat anybody, or no subterfuge needed. And the nice thing about it is it works very well in any market. I had a sign over my door one time because I saw somebody, might have been in your office, Manny. Somebody had a sign over the door that says, "Dear God, let there be one more good market, and I promise not to piss it all away this time." Yeah. Well, I put the same sign over my door during the good market times, and I said, "Dear God, let there be one more bad market, and I promise not to piss it all away this time." Because in a bad market, we shine. Because in a bad market, we go out and there's no problem picking up all the houses we want. We pick and choose, and there are millions of them available, and we just take what we like. And we don't have to, climb up on the top of the tree to pick the peaches. We don't have to bend down on the ground and get the rotten ones. We just pick the peaches that are waist high. And if somebody says to me on the telephone, "I don't think that's a good idea," I don't care. Because right behind him is 15 more people who think it's a great idea. So that's the nice thing about what we do. Now let's move on. I'll try not to hang on to the slides as long as we go through. Here's some properties that you probably saw if I did a promo in your club or office or whatever. But here's some properties that we picked up over the last several years. And these are just a few out of probably 100 total that Gail and I picked up, maybe 200 in the last 12 years. Our students, we've helped students pick up another 4,000 plus, but these are some properties that we have, and there's Detroit, Michigan. We got properties in Detroit. We got properties in California, San Pedro, California, Alabama, Albuquerque. We got properties in Rochester, Minnesota, New York, properties in Florida, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, so on. I don't have to be there. I have never seen any of these properties. What you're seeing right now on every property on that page is as much as I've ever seen of these properties, and they're making me money hand over fist. I don't have to be there. I've got a resident beneficiary in every one of those properties, taking care of the properties, handling the maintenance and the repair and upkeep. I got somebody else doing all the grunt work and paying all the money. The only thing I do is sit back and let them make their payments to Tom Standen's company, and then every month Tom Standen sends me a check for all of my positive cash flow. And that's kind of a nice way to go. And positive cash flow, the more houses I get, the more people I get in them, the bigger the positive cash flow gets. And the nice thing about it is you hold these for a few years when in a decent market, and when the market turns and so forth, and then you start selling them. That's kind of nice. Let me show you how that works. Here's some properties that we've sold over the last couple years. Now you take a look at these and you see in some cases we sold a property, it's like $200,000 profit on that one. I got it for $690, sold it for almost $1 million, spent $200 fixing it up and so on. And there's one that Barbara Cayley and I did right there out in Riverside, California. Where's Barbara? Barbara? Where are you? Over there? How many deals have you done with us, Barbara? As a network member, how many deals? 18 or 20 transactions. Here's one that she and I partnered on. We got the property at $90,000 with a $20,000 second on it. We got the second to reduce the amount of the second. We sold the property for, I think it was $235,000, something like that. So Barbara and I split out about $140 between us. It's kind of a nice way to go. And we had a couple different people in there. We don't care. We had 3 people in the property. The first one came in and they were didn't last long and they defaulted. But we didn't care because we kept their money. Anyway, all of their contingency fund, because they still owed us all the remaining payments in the lease agreement, so we didn't owe them anything back. They moved out. We put somebody else in, and they gave us another $8,000 or $9,000 to get in, or $5,000 or $6,000 or whatever it was. We kept that money. They defaulted. The guy came in. He's going to grow it was 2.5 acres, and he's going to put a palm tree farm on his acreage to grow young palm trees and then strip out the hearts to sell for palm hearts to salad companies or something. Well, that didn't last for very long. I think you'd probably have to have more than 2.5 acres. And he might not have figured that out, that it takes 10 years for a palm tree to grow a foot or something. But anyway, he defaulted. We kept his money. He moved out, put some other people in, collected another $8,000 or $9,000 or $5,000 or $6,000 or whatever it was. And then finally they decided to buy it. We sold the property to them at $235,000. Remember, we got it for $90,000. So that was a pretty good deal. Barbara and I have done several deals together. She's done a lot more by herself without me that we did the documents for and so forth. Manny, how many transactions did we do with you? About 70 transactions. Manny Anner has done about 70 of these transactions. Would you say that our system works pretty good?
Never had a problem.
I don't think you should ever have a problem. But anyway, some of these properties there, we made a little money, and some of them we made a lot of money. Let's see, let me run through a couple. There's $25,000 on that one. It was actually this one right here. This one right, I can't reach it. You guys over there don't have any idea what I'm talking about, do you? The one that says $25,000, that was actually $75,000 split 3 ways because we had 3 investor beneficiaries together. Then there's one that says, let's see, $15,000 and so on. So you can just see, there's one up on top that says walked away from. Now some of you have heard this story and it's second hand to you, but those of you who haven't heard the story, the reason I talk about that one is because when I filed the bankruptcy in 1990, we moved out of a house that was worth $220,000. Payments were $1,400 a month, and we couldn't afford it. We had to file bankruptcy. Great Western foreclosed on the house. Well, about 5-6 months later, we moved into another house that was worth $520,000, and the payments were $3,200 a month. But we could afford that because now we had our epiphany, and all of a sudden we know some business. We find people who don't want houses and people who do and put them together and make a bunch of money. So we were able to afford that just fine until the Northridge earthquake hit. When the Northridge earthquake hit, it took an entire 3-story wall out of the house and dumped it on the neighbor's house, and knocked a chimney off the back of the house into the neighbor's swimming pool. The house shifted about 8 inches on the foundation, ripped out all the wiring, gas, and everything else. It was a horrible mess. And then we were right up there in that area where the fire shot 80 feet or 180 feet or whatever it was, and the president came out to look at the hole, and yep, boy, got quite a hole there, don't you? Yeah. So anyway, what happens is people don't recognize or realize how powerful that earthquake was. It wasn't 6.9, it was 7.1. And it's an exponential increase. A 7.1 over 6.9 is not a little bit of a change, it's an exponential change. It's like a gigantic bell shaping it. And the way I make people appreciate what we went through is I tell them the story. The earthquake hit at like 6 o'clock in the morning. My wife and I were making passionate love. Threw me out of bed and almost woke her up. Now you know, that was quite an earthquake. So anyway, here's the fun part. Let me show you the fun part of this. Okay, now talk about synchronicity. Let me tell you just a couple real quick synchronicity stories here. The first one is this house up on the left. Now I told you that I write letters to my director. Okay, and those of you here last night, or were not here last night, you got to get the book by Robert Scheinfeld, right? Robert Scheinfeld. It's called The Invisible Path to Success. He suggested if you don't like the way your life is going, just change it. Write a letter. You wrote the play. You're playing what you wrote. It's your decisions. But if you like to change the direction of it, just write a letter to your director. And I had to have $25,000. This was on Monday that I found out that I had to have $25,000 cash, and I had to have the cash by Thursday. So now I'm sitting back thinking, how am I going to get this cash? I write a letter to my director, tell the director in the letter, dear director, I am in desperate need of $25,000 cash, which when I receive it will be paid to so-and-so to satisfy the debt on so-and-so, and I'd like to have that as soon as possible. I need it before next Thursday. And then I sign my name and date it, and I say, if it's not available, I'd like to have something of equal value that can satisfy the same need. Now, not more than a couple hours later, I get a call from Peter Cleghorn. He says, what do you got? And I said, I got this house in Palmdale, and to tell you the truth, he says, well, what do you want for it? And I said, well, Peter, to tell you the truth, I don't know if there's 20,000 equity, but the thing is, I do need to get $25,000 before next Thursday. And I was going to tell him, that if you want to give me 15 or 10, I'll get it from somebody else. He says, no, that's fine. I'll take it. And I said, okay, great. He says, I'll give you 30,000 for it. I said, well, no, 25 is all I need. He said, no, 30. Take it or leave it. I said, oh, okay. Because he had to get rid of 30,000, and we're good friends, and he knew that I've done a lot for him. So he hands me $30,000 by calling his 1031 qualified intermediary and telling Carl to wire the $30,000 in my bank account immediately. I needed it on Thursday. I got it Wednesday at 10 a.m., and everything's fine. Talk about synchronicity. That's it. Let me tell you about the one on the right-hand side. Can you guys all hear me okay? Yeah. Okay, good. The one on the right-hand side, this is the property in Pagosa Springs, Colorado. I had never heard, thank you, Steve, never heard of Pagosa Springs, Colorado in my life. Never have heard of it, and never knew anybody had ever heard of it. So a guy somehow finds me. He's got this property that's got a loan on it of $180, and he says the value is probably about $240. And he was willing to let me have the property if I just take over the payments. And I said, well, are the payments current? And he said, yes, they are. And I said, well, you probably have to make one more payment because it'll take me a little while to get somebody in it. He said, that's fine. So we signed the agreement. The non-exclusive option doesn't cost me anything. We're ready to go. And then I call my friend of mine in Denver, one of the guys that I've done a lot of equity holding trusts with, Caesar Serrato in Denver. And I say, Caesar, I got one that we can partner on if you want to. And he says, yeah, okay, great. Where is it? And I said, it's in Pagosa Springs. You ever hear of it? And he says, oh, yeah, but that's 4 hours away. And I said, really? I didn't know you could go somewhere in Colorado for 4 hours and so on. So I thought, well, and you can see how much I know about geography. I said, okay, well, thanks. I'll call Dick Newman. So I called Dick Newman in Boulder, Colorado, thinking, well, Boulder's probably a lot closer. Well, Boulder and Denver are right next to each other. I didn't know. So Newman can't do it. So I'm sitting back. Peter Cleghorn calls me. He says, you got any properties that I can pick up, Bill? And I said, well, I got one that I just picked up in Pagosa Springs, Colorado. I said, have you ever heard of Pagosa Springs, Colorado? And he said, it's funny you mention it. I never had heard of it in my life until about an hour ago. I said, really? He says, yeah, an hour ago, Ted Widmer called me. Ted Widmer is a guy that we had partnered with on another transaction, and Ted Widmer is moving from Dallas, Texas to Pagosa Springs, Colorado next week. Whoa. So I said, okay. So I called Ted Widmer, and I said, I understand you're moving. Yeah. I said, well, I need a ground partner on this property. He said, well, if you can give me a couple of weeks, it's going to take me a week to move, and blah, blah, blah. Now think about this for a second. Is that synchronicity or what? Is the other one synchronicity, or is it just coincidence? Synchronicity. These are serious coincidences fulminating in a definite end result. Here's the one on the bottom. Here's one of the best ones of all. This is where we live now. This is the house we live in right now. That's the one I told you about, where the guy calls me for no reason because the message I left on the answering machine says, stay on the loan, leave your equity intact. He calls and says, nope, won't do that. You get a down payment, qualify for a loan, and forget it. There's no reason for him to call me because I told him, don't call me if that's not the way you're going to do it, but he did anyway. Then Marla Jamaliolu calls me and tells me she's got to get rid of $150,000 on a 1031 exchange. I get it back to him, and I tell him I'll give him $150,000. He says, fine, I'll give you 6 months to refinance the house. I said, that's great. I called Marla, and I said, I got your property for you. And she says, really? And I said, yeah, and not only that, if you want to do an equity share, I got a resident beneficiary for you. And she said, that's fantastic. Who is it? I said, that's me. And we own it. We paid Marla off, paid her back her $150,000. She'd already refinanced and pulled out $40,000. So we paid her back the $150,000 plus another $100,000 or so. So she more than doubled her $150,000 in a period of just a couple of years. Now think of the synchronicity here. This guy calls me, and he shouldn't have been someone calling, but he did. Marla calls me within an hour and says she needs exactly what he had to offer. And I didn't even put the two and two together, because when I talked to her, I said, well, I don't know if I can help you or not, Marla, but I'll sure keep my eyes open. And it wasn't a lie, because I would keep my eyes open, and if something happened to fall in my lap, I would have called her. But and then all of a sudden after I hung up, I thought, wait a second, synchronicity, synchronicity. Bam, here it comes. Now, and the part that I left out on that story, told it too many times, I guess, is that before any of this happened, we'd sold the house that we were in December, and we had to be out of it in January 31st. On January 12th, Gail came in and said, we need to get a house. So I sat down, write a letter to my director saying, we need to have a house. We need 5 bedrooms. We need at least 2 baths, if not 3. We need a 2-car garage. We need a place to operate our business. We need this and that. And so I just described the house and then folded the thing up and put it in my wish box and forgot about it. And that's when Isaac called. And within an hour, that's when Marla called. And within 2 hours, we had the whole thing put together with Isaac having his money coming. And instead of $560, we got it at $530. And then it went up to, what, John? $975, I think it was. $975,000 when we refinanced it. Paid her off, and everybody's happy. Does that tell you something about what we talked about last night, the synchronicity? Somebody came up with a synchronicity a little while ago, before we started, who was telling me something had happened, and I said, is that a synchronicity or what? I've had probably 3 people so far tell me about synchronicities that have occurred to them since we talked about it last night. And if you want to control that universe, all you got to do is remember that word, think about it every time you see this juxtaposition in this matrix. It just means that you're crossing over these lines 2 at a time. You cross over one, your life will change a little bit, but you won't notice. But when you get to the corner where these 2 lines cross, now you're stepping over 4 lines at one time, and that's when the epiphanies hit. That's when the synchronicities hit. And that's when you suddenly realize how much in charge you are of this universe. There's a story that, what's her name? Susie Orman? Susan Orman? Susie Orman? She tells a story that relates exactly to what I'm talking about. She's driving along with her driver down Beverly Boulevard one day, and she stops at a stop sign in her limo, and this guy comes up to she's got her window down. The guy comes up, it says, excuse me, because he sees the limo. He says, there's some money. The guy comes up, excuse me, would you have a couple $dollars that I could buy some lunch with? And she says, no, I don't. She rolls the window up. It's just a homeless guy. She rolls the window up. They're all over the place. So she goes, oh man, why did I do that? I could afford to give the guy a couple dollars. That's really rude. So she tells her driver, listen, stop at the next stop sign. She gets out of the car at the stop sign, walks all the way back to this guy, takes a $100 bill out of her purse, ready to hand the guy a $100 bill, which would have absolutely blown his mind. And as she gets about 15 feet away, he's talking to an old lady sitting on a box. He tries to kick the box out from under the old lady and spits in her face because she won't give him one of her cigarettes. Well, Susie Armand just puts her money back in her purse, turns around, walks back to her car, gets in the car, and drives away. This guy never knew what happened. He came up to his juxtaposition. He came up to his matrix, and he didn't step over. He participated in what we call devolutionary action. There's two actions you can take in everything in your life. One's evolutionary and one's devolutionary. Evolutionary action means whatever you're doing, if it's picking your nose or dancing, you're doing something that will advance our species and advance the collective intelligence of mankind. And a devolutionary action is when you do something that detracts from the advance of the intelligence and the collective consciousness of man. Well, here's a devolutionary action. Spit on somebody, that's not nice. Kick the box, that's not nice. Missed a $100 gift right there on the spot. $100 could have changed his life, who knows? And that's all you need to do. Right action, need it, and have a place to put it.
Guys, thank you for joining us for this little presentation. Really appreciate it. This is Bill Gatten, and I wanted everyone to know that you can get to us several ways. First of all, on the net, we're www.landtrust.net, and in the office, our phone number is 1-800-409-3444. That's 1-800-409-3444, and my private backline number just for you guys is 150. That'll avoid the operator and the telephone machine and all that kind of stuff. So thanks a lot. I'd love to work with you in teaching how to pick up properties without cash credit or rigmarole, and how to let somebody else live in them for you, take care of all the payments, maintenance, management, repair, upkeep, and property taxes and everything else, while you just kind of sit back, count your money, and wait for the properties to go up and collect some positive cash flow in the meantime. So there's a lot more to learn about this concept, obviously, and I would love to teach it to you. So give us a call, find us on the internet. You can email me at BG, that's BG for Bill Gatten, at landtrust.net. That's BG at landtrust.net. Thanks so much.
I do architecture design.
I am self-employed.
I'm a retired public health nurse.
I am a professional, full-time square dance caller. I'm an insurance agent. I'm a real estate broker.
I actually was a college student.
Right now I'm a full-time investor, and I was working at the time I started, and I was able to stay home with my son after he was born and spend time with him. I've been to a lot of guru seminars, but Bill Gatten seminar has just been phenomenal.
I've known Bill and Gail for about 12 years. I saw Bill speaking, and I became a network member on the spot.
I've been with the network for 14 years. I'm part of the network, 2 going in 3 months. Did my very first property with Bill over in Thousand Oaks in about 1989 and 90.
Not only is the material exceptional, the people are just wonderful, professional. There's many ways to acquire property, but you always want to do it safely. And these seminars give you a tremendous tool for being able to look at the different ways you can acquire the property and protect yourself, protect the people that you're going to be helping, protect the people that you're going to be working with, and make money in the process.
The other programs we charge extra for coaching, and there was limited time for coaching. So if you weren't successful, that was it, goodbye, kiss you away.
With the other companies, I don't get the one-on-one, attention with with the higher, people, with the trainer, where I do that. I do get that with Bill and his team. So that's really important to me as to make sure that my business will, blossom and become successful.
You can talk to any of the staff to find out if you have any questions, you can ask questions. And it's not a pushy, at least since I've been here, they have not tried to push product or try to sell anything. They tell you what they have available, and if you're interested, you go and buy it.
I'm absolutely thankful for the continuous support they give you, the education, mentorship. I mean, they're always there for you. They're totally accessible, and that's why I originally joined, because I thought this is something you don't get anywhere else.
I like Bill from the word go. He's very, very intelligent man, very funny, and full of knowledge. And at that time, he was offering the network membership to us, and he says a lifetime membership, and I said, oh yeah, okay, I've heard that before. And truly, it is a lifetime membership. Testament to that, because it's 14 years, and every time I come to one of these 2.5-day, 3-day seminars, you always learn something new.